Hello everyone, this is Remleiz from 40k Theories, and welcome to this newest episode of Adeptus Podcastus. Joining me as always is Tactica Imperialis.
Well, almost always. I missed the last episode, but yes, hello everyone.
And joining us as our guest this episode is someone whose return has been long overdue, to be honest. But it's a welcome return nonetheless. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest this episode is none other than Kirioth.
It's only been 2 years. It's only been 2 years. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, scheduling conflicts are a proverbial something. Or I can't say this early in the video without being demonetized.
Yeah,
but anyway,
they are.
I don't like them. Yeah, they're a pain. They're
pain,
not fun.
Yes. It's Spain, but the S is silent.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And before we jump into the news, I want to bring this up now because if I don't, I'll never get a chance to. But I still can't get over the fact that back in the day, Kirioth, you were on Total Biscuit's podcast.
Oh yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah, that's going back a bit, isn't it? That was a while ago. Yeah, I had a whole other channel that I did with someone else before I started my own one, and we were in the same back when. Do you remember when networks were a thing, where you had to be in a network to monetize gaming content? Yeah, we were in the same network as Total Biscuit, so we got to do a podcast, which was fun, but I'll be honest, I don't like going back and seeing it. It's too long ago. It makes me feel time has passed too much.
I saw the footage and I was like, bloody hell, you look young.
Yeah. Also, I'm not sure about the shaved head look anymore. I think it was a bit like there was a bit of thug going on there that I don't think was all that great.
We all learn from our mistakes. Also, quick question: the network, it wasn't broadband TV, was it?
No, it was Game Station. The Game Station, I think it was called.
Oh yeah,
and then it became Polaris. And
yeah,
then
I always think of TV as Polaris.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed to disintegrate fairly rapidly after becoming Polaris, to be honest. I think it was just before all the stuff where it turned out that actually you didn't really need to be in a network at all.
Yeah. I think all of us have been in a network at least at one point.
I haven't.
Or at least most of us, anyway. That's why I said most.
Say I'm too young for all this network palaver.
I managed to avoid it with the current channel, but yeah, it was a whole thing. They stole I say stole. You know, part of your revenue went. It's not on, is it?
No. But anyway, moving back on track. In the news this week...
not a lot.
Not that much.
Yeah, I picked the absolute worst week to go off because bloody hell, everything happened. And the worst part is because you recorded it on the Sunday, we can't even talk about the preview because you recorded it late because I had to call in sick so late, you had to rearrange the show. Did it on Sunday, got to talk about all the preview models, and I bloody missed it. Alongside all the battle forces, I'm kicking myself that I was not able to make that show. I'm fuming.
The absolute worst timing to miss that one, wasn't it?
Yeah, especially because I went through all that preview stuff and I'm gassed by most of it. Sorry, I'm going to do a 30-second rundown because, I'm not going to not talk about it. The World Eater stuff looks really cool. I saw your video on I don't think these 8-bound really clarify against Terminators because they're just weird possessed, and I do kind of agree with they still look awesome. The Jackals look great. Can I have them in my Khorne Bloodbound army, please? The new Beast Lord looks great. The new Glowspite look great. The Cawdor things look stupid, but then they're meant to. Vashtor, I really want to know if this leads to a Dark Mech army. I really hoped it would lead to a Dark Mechanicum army. I don't know if it will, but I really, 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 really hope it does. There, done.
I'm going to be super sad if it doesn't. Like, really sad. Because surely it's the perfect intro model to that. Like an entire force with that aesthetic. I know it's not that far removed from like the Venom Crawler and stuff and the Lord Discordant. There's some like similar design stuff going on there. But an entire army where all of the big stuff is this same kind of weird flesh stretched over mechanical parts look.
Yeah.
It would be so good. So good.
Because isn't the current rumour like he's somehow tied to the Forge of Souls?
He is a demon of the Forge of Souls. They actually did a video about him on the Warhammer YouTube channel. which I did watch after the fact, he's actually...
I must have missed that.
Yeah, he's very much like Be'lakor in many ways, in that he is a very powerful demon, not a demon prince, but a demon, who is part of the Forge of Souls, is a Forge master in his own way, and wants to become a god. By any means necessary, which sort of reminds me of Be'lakor in many ways. So it would be a really good, like they've done with Be'lakor in Slaves to Darkness, giving him a sub-faction all to himself that stands against Archaon. Having Vashtor be a, you know what, just like Abaddon, a gods, I want to be a god myself, and I don't need any of you for getting in my way. That's a really nice place to take him.
If he's a mechanical Be'lakor, does that make him a Be'lakron?
Oh, that's appalling.
I think that deserved more than it got, honestly. It wasn't.
To be fair, it should have got a head desk, but I haven't got space on my desk to head.
Well, isn't it? Wasn't there something in that? I forget where they said this. I can't remember if it was on the stream or whether it was in the video. That he's like a demigod of creation.
So I think the word demigod did get bandied about in the video. I don't remember demigod of creation, but demigod definitely got bandied about.
Which, by itself, I really like the idea that they might kind of bring that sort of thing forward a bit more. Because given the sheer, like, what the warp is, they're being, like, identifiable characters that can be classed as demigods of certain aspects. That's a really cool development. Yeah, but, like, you could expand that out to so much.
Yeah, because isn't, like, the very definition of a demigod is half god, half mortal?
Loosely, yes.
Yeah.
They could totally mess with that, though. They could do what they like with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's 40k, they tend to, mess with definitions and stuff all the time, don't they? So
yeah.
Yeah, and it'll be nice to see. I think what's really interesting is I have a few demons that I've got mostly for Warhammer Club with some Slaanesh and some Khorne. And it doesn't feel like there's any unification to playing mixed demons. Like, it might just be because I'm using Battlescribe, not the Codex, unless I haven't read enough on Warpstorm. But it really feels like you are decentivized in the current Demons Codex from running undivided or mixed demons, and that you're kind of punished for doing so in some ways. There isn't like an allegiance ability undivided that you can run for demons. And having someone like Vashtor or Be'lakor, same difference, who represent an undivided faction where demons of different gods may be bound to serve under him or slave to the Forge of Souls. Hello, Soul Grinders, we see you over there. That could be a really nice place to take the Demons Codex, had they not just released it. But undivided demons, like, we've got Furies, who haven't had models for Yonks. There's still those little things like the Demons of the Ruinstorm that are hidden away from Heresy. Like, let undivided demons just be a smattering of units, like just powerful warp entities that behave like demons.
I've thought about that before, where the idea of Chaos Undivided is quite a big and significant one when you look at the fact that, like, Lorgar, for instance, being a demon prince of Chaos Undivided, but then when you actually look at the demonic factions, there's just no representation for that. It's just here they're all specific, but the whole thing with Chaos Undivided is that you're supposed to, I don't know, it feels like it should be made into more than it is, that it's like only represented in terms of Chaos Space Marines, that they don't really touch it anywhere else. And that there's a whole, like, extra line of models they could do, which would be undivided demons that are their own thing. And it would make running that sort of army way more fun. And, like, it would make far more sense, because it looks like, to be honest, you're also, I feel like, in some ways decentivized from painting demons undivided. Like, if you want to run an army full of demons, it's going to look weird if you paint a bunch of red plague bearers, because that's the colour that blood letters are.
Yeah,
so if you wanted a unified army, it would look really, really weird.
Agreed. And I'm going to say a controversial thing now. I think AOS did it better, because AOS allows each god to run a dedicated book, mortal and demon, together. So Head of Knights of Slaanesh is Mortal Slaanesh plus Demons of Slaanesh. Slaves to Darkness, therefore, can be a true undivided chaos book. It sort of allows for the mortals, the warriors, the cultists, all that stuff, and leaves the room for undivided entities such as Be'lakor, and as would be the case if you were in AOS, Vashtor. Units like that don't really belong to one god in particular can go in that book. Now, I am aware it would be a bit weird to say, right, Demons of Tzeentch go in the Thousand Suns Codex, Demons of Nurgle go in the Death Guard Codex, etc. You can't run mixed demons, and you wouldn't under that system. You can't in AOS unless you run Grand Alliance Chaos, which has no allegiance abilities and therefore is trash. But the Chaos Demons book currently says, hey, you see how Age of Sigmar lets you run mixed mortals and demons? Yeah, no, you just have to run mono demons. And you're going to like it. Because if you want mortals, go ally them into Chaos Marines, which is a terrible idea because you'll never get enough points to actually make it worth it. Actual mixed hybrid armies around one god would probably be better. It would require an Emperor's Children Codex, I'm aware. But I honestly think AOS has a better way of handling the undivided is a major thing, but we can't ignore the gods than the Demons Codex does, which is, here's Chaos, they do everything. Here's Demons, they do one thing, 4 different ways, and you can't have a mix. Weird.
It feels like another one of those things where they've just kind of... There's like a big lore element that they've just never got around to representing properly. I mean, it's the same thing with like Traitor Guard and Dark Mechanicus. Those are my 2 go-to examples for things that are massive deals in universe and super important, and they're just not really a thing. And it's like, I know Forge World had like the Renegades and Heretics line, but that was Forge World specific. And so it was never going to be mainstream because it was Forge World specific and vastly expensive and not marketed in anywhere near the same way that the Games Workshop base stuff is. And yet, when you look at like... I reread the Wordbearers Omnibus the other day, and that book series wouldn't exist without Traitor Guard being a thing. It just wouldn't. A vast amount of the forces used to conquer and destroy planets and turn them to chaos are Traitor Guard, and there is still just no representation for that on the tabletop whatsoever. And I know you can just take normal Guard
there is a Traitor Guard kill
chaos
team
on them, but well, that's the thing. It's like, take that, but make all of it. I want like stick chaos vehicle accessory sprues into Lehman Russ boxes. Take Ogryns and do things to make them chaosy. Like actually make it a thing where if someone wants to start that, they don't need to start by buying a bunch of loyalist army stuff and then be told, oh yeah, we just treat it like it's chaos. Like actually have benefits to it and do it properly. It'd be really nice if they actually did it.
And the Chaos Space Marines Codex does not help this because, I want to run an army of cultists and stuff. Okay, I hope you're willing to buy a unit of legionaries for every single cultist unit you took, including the Dark Commune and Traitor Guard and the mutated ones, because you have to have one of each to stop cultist spam. It's annoying. Like, I think the Chaos Codex either needs to do as you said, embrace Traitor Guard and make them a codex and put cultists in there. Or if you want cultists in Chaos Space Marines, fine. But have the one-to-one legionaries or like core Marines to cultist hacks, unless you take a Dark Communist HQ, in which case you can lock yourself into cultists with maybe only 1 or 2 Marine units in the whole army, and then just run a cultist army and then have like a few Chosen and a Dark Apostle being in the background like, ooh, I'm the big boss man in the shadows and all that. Like, either embrace Traitor Guard, which I think is the better decision, or if you're going to have them in the Chaos Codex, then let us run a bloody army of them without locking us into taking 1 million Marines.
I'm just now reminded of second edition's Chaos Codex. We had the Chaos Space Marine army list, then the Chaos Cultist army list, and then the Chaos Demon World army list, all in the same book.
I mean,
those were the days.
That just sounds better, to be honest, at this point.
It would be bloated beyond hell, but hello, Space Marines.
I was going to say that's never stopped them before, has it?
No.
It's not like that's gone away in this current edition.
In fairness, that codex was roughly about the same size as the Angels of Death codex, which was the combined Dark Angel and Blood Angel codex.
I forgot that was a thing.
Yeah.
I always forget that those two were shoved into one codex for a bit.
I still find it weird that the Space Wolf codex was the first Space Marine codex released in 2nd edition.
That is weird, actually. So not even just the vanilla Marines, it was just...
It was Space Wolves, then Orcs, and then it was Eldar, and then it was Ultramarines, I think.
That is amazing.
It was a weird
order.
time. It was a weird time. And I think the very last codex we got was the Assassin Codex.
God, what would you even do with an Assassin Codex now? It's not even a thing, is it?
The funny thing is, like, it still had, like, in the ally list, you can ally with any of the Space Marine Codexes, Sisters of Battle, Imperial Guard, and Squats. They were still advertising a Squat Codex, even though they weren't going to make one.
Oh, I love old Games Workshop.
It was the glory days, in my eyes. Just from nostalgia point of view.
I still think that the 3rd edition Chaos Space Marines Codex is like the peak codex they've ever written. I still think it's the best one.
Isn't that the broken one they had to rewrite halfway through?
I think it was the second half of it, yeah. Where that was an amazing codex because you had like technically 2 pages per like legion, so like Night Lords, Nine Warriors and whatever. They only got like a single to 2 pages of rules. But those single, like that one change, like that one little section in that relatively short codex by like today's standards, completely lined up with what those legions are. Like it got the personality of them in the smallest set of rules. Like the Iron Warriors being able to take 4 heavy support slots, but sacrificing 2 fast attack in order to do that, being able to take the Basilisk, like that by itself was just okay. Like even if you don't know anything about the different legions, like that told you everything you need to know. Oh, they can take artillery and they can have 4 heavy support, but they lose fast attack. Clearly they are siege specialists. Like you don't even need to know anything about them to pick up what they're about. It was such a well-written codex. Every now and again I go back and read my copy again. And I just sit there and I'm like, it's so good. So good.
I'm going to say another controversial thing now. The Curians were actually really good for that in 7th. Like having armies feel like unique armies. I know everyone hates the Curians now, but they were very good for narratively expressing what an army did without having to actually be told what the army did. Like Farsight Enclaves, best example. The core detachment, was the Retaliation Cadre, the Deep Strike Crisis Suit one. Like, that's telling you in a sentence, hey, the Farsight Bomb and mass battle suits is how you play Farsight Enclaves. Okay, cool. That was all you needed. And I know the Curians were overcomplicated. I know they were power gamed into oblivion, but custom things for each army make them more unique, and stratagems, relics, and warlord traits that are mostly reskins of the same thing are not that.
They're not. They're just not. It's like, it feels like at this point, the stratagem side of things was meant to add depth and personality, but then they realised that they need to add more every time they make something new. And it just got to the point of absurdity. Like I'm still getting notifications from that that tweet I made over the weekend.
Oh, the stratagem one.
Yeah, I was like 4 or 5 ciders deep, and I was finally relaxing after a tricky week, and I just decided, you know what? Now's the time. Now's the time to say that stratagems are trash and should be removed, which is hyperbolic to say the extreme, because I don't actually think that they should be removed. I just think they've got too bloated and there's just too many. There's too many, and there's a bunch that are like specific to units, and why are they not on the data sheet instead of being listed among the rest of the stratagems? The fact that there are some that are just never ever used, and some that are used all the time. Some of them don't make any sense in terms of like what they do, like transhuman physiology, that's not a strategy.
That's just biology.
That's just what it is. That's just what, like, there should not be stratagems where it's like, okay, your vehicles try really hard and now they're harder to kill. Like, what does that even mean? It means something mechanically, but just like the placement of it is really weird. And there's so many that feel like they should be like, once per battle you activate this thing, but then they're alongside super niche, once every 10 games when the stars align options, and when there's like 30 or 40 a book, and I'm just like, I can't remember what half of my own do for any given army. I can't then remember what other people's do as well. They're like a good addition, but the execution has just got way out of hand. It's just basically the same thing that they do, that Games Workshop is known for doing and are quite bad for, is they have a good idea, but then they don't know when to stop with the idea.
And I think
the Vince Russo effect.
I think what's been most damning is, for me, well, not damning, but interesting for me, is I run a Warhammer club. I've talked about it many times on the show, at school. So I have, like, students from secondary school age who come to learn Warhammer for the first time at Warhammer Club. And do you know what we do? We play 5th edition style. Like, we just say, here's your sheet with your rules on. Play that. We don't put a codex out. We have not used the word stratagem once. But all the kids can... Like, I did it today. I taught students today how to play Age of Sigmar, then gave them a wizard and said, go. And they did it. In half a nanosecond. If I did the same with 40k and said, right, you've learned how to play the game, right, now here's your stratagems that you can use at once per game with your army, I'm just going to get glazed looks.
Yeah, it's so much to take in for someone who's new. Like, it's just, it makes it look unapproachable, even though it isn't, because realistically, you could take someone who's new and you could say, okay, like, you could play through and you could introduce stratagems and say, here are 2 abilities, and you can use each of them once. So if something happens that you think, I need this extra bit of defensive power, then use this one. And they would get that straight away. But if you show them the Codex and go, look at all this extra stuff you can do, try and remember what these are, off you go. Like, there's just no way. There's no way that someone who's new, unless they are already experienced in war games, are going to get that. And it's like, it's just another barrier to entry, I think. Yeah. And it makes me kind of, not like irritated, but I tend to speak to people who try 40k because they come across like 40k channels and want to give it a go. And there are people that are just like, what is all this stuff? Why is this here? I don't like it. And I'm like, look, you're not alone, but just stick with it and you will get it eventually, or just find someone who doesn't want to use them.
Yeah.
And it's not technically how the game's been designed at this point, but it's easier to learn if you do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I still maintain, maybe it's because it's the one I learned, but 5th edition was I know I'm getting very much old woman yells at cloud here, but 5th edition was the best edition for pick up and play I think there has ever been. Because if a bunch of 12-year-olds can self-teach themselves to play 40k optimally with like maybe a couple of kids at the club who are vaguely competent and have played before, when the edition is brand new and a major rewrite over 4th, lest we forget, and we could master it without ever speaking to anyone outside our social circle, because this was before the days of just going on Reddit and going on Twitter and getting advice on YouTube videos, 5th edition was pick up and play. Yes, they then, as Remleiz said, went too far. Vince Russo'd it and we ended up with 7th. And then they reset it. And 8th was incredibly easy to pick up and play. And then 9th happened. And then 10th will happen. It will be even worse. And so they'll have to reset it again. Probably.
I wouldn't be surprised if 10th is a bit of a reset by itself, to be honest. Like, I think it's got to the point now where enough people have complained about it and there have been enough larger, especially like something that didn't exist back then was big YouTube channels who play the game for a living, who can go to, 100,000 people. What the hell is this? This is ridiculous. It's so overcomplicated. Why have they made it like this? And stuff like that is hard to ignore because it gets to so many people. Like, it gets to so many people when someone prominent says that the way they've done this is absolutely stupid and I don't like it. It may not... I know there are probably people who do not view that as a positive thing, but it at least provides another avenue of feedback that I don't think has, really existed up until this point. To be honest, I really hope that they swerve more towards the AOS style of things with the heroic actions and monstrous actions and stuff, because those are so much easier to keep track of. Everyone has the same ones. You can do them at certain points, and that's it. There's ones out of the books, but you have a core set that you have, and your opponent knows you have, and they have those as well, because they're the same for literally everyone.
Yep.
And the thing is, people still forget them, but it's nowhere near as bad, and you don't have to worry about them doing something that you don't know how it works, because for the most part, you're going to be using the same ones back and forth. I used an example recently where when I went to the Facehammer tournament this year, I took 4 Mega Gargants with me, and I forgot Monstrous Action 2 turns in a row, which is bad. But the thing is, my opponent also forgot, and he was playing a 3 Maw Crusher list. So it was just monsters fighting monsters, and we both forgot about Monstrous Action. So it still happens, you still forget, but at the same time, neither of us were like, oh, we forgot this thing that could decide the course of this round of combat. No. Or like, oh, what are you doing using that? What does that even do? Because we both know what they did, and after the fact, we wrote monsters on a piece of A4 paper and then put it in the middle of the table and didn't forget again. But it was still just we knew what they did. It would just be, okay, monstrous action, what do you want to do? And you just know, because you have those exact ones right in front of you, and everyone else does as well. And I really want to get to the point where, if you want to teach, this edition, current edition of 40k, whatever edition that is, you can just sit down with someone and go, we've got an hour and a half, and now you know the game. That's literally how I learned Age of Sigmar.
Yep.
In 2021, I went to Facehammer for the first time, to a tournament, and I took my Nighthorn army that I'd built specially for it.
Yeah.
And I showed up having never played Age of Sigmar outside of the first edition of it, which doesn't count because it's not the same game in any way, shape, or form at this stage.
No, it is not.
Everything's so different. And I showed up there, and I had my first game against an exceptionally good player, world-class player, and went, I've never played before, and I'm really sorry, but I figured this would be a fun way to learn. And he went, you came to a competitive tournament to learn to play the game. And I said, yes, I'm sorry that you're having to deal with this. Is that okay? And he was great. And in an hour and a half, I'd learned AOS. And I went on to lose 4, but win 1. And one of the losses was a mild loss. It wasn't a major loss. And I had a great time, and I'd learned the game immediately. And I went on to play the game for the next 6 months, having just got back from 2 weekends of playing 5 games. And I was like, right, I know how to play Age of Sigmar, let's go.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
I can't imagine doing that with 40k right now.
No.
Genuinely can't.
Again, I'm going to ride on 5th edition a little bit here. Universal special rules? The awkward silence tells me everything I need to know about what they said about universal special rules. I don't know. I actually think they're better in terms of learning the game. Yes, having the rules on a datasheet is great. But when every single one has 16 million rules, and half of them come from the Codex, then it doesn't really help you. So just bring back USRs, have the core stratagems be universal rules. They have access to this stratagem, and this stratagem on any given turn. And also they have this rule, this rule, this rule. Everybody knows what it means. Everybody can get on with it. No reading required as soon as you've learned the game maybe twice. That's it. Done. It's all the different ways they've managed to say this unit can ignore the lookout sir rule. And also, by the way, if you roll a 6 to wound, it does a mortal wound. That's just called, sniper and rending. just put Sniper and Rending on the card and just say, have a rule book or a spreadsheet or a datasheet printout that is free to download with all those USRs on them. Bang, done. Everybody knows what the monster does.
Yeah, which, again, is exactly what they've done with the General's Handbook for AOS.
Yep.
Just here's a page, and it's got all the rules that you both have access to on. That's it. That's all you need. Brilliant. Okay. Like, there's no kind of, what does that do? Can I read that? Hang on. I've never heard of this before. What's that stratagem for? No, it's just, I'm going to use this heroic action. Okay, cool. I know what that is, because I have it right there, and I don't need to borrow your Codex, because the wording on it is slightly different from mine, but the rule is essentially the same, but it's been changed for flavour. Flavour's cool. I love flavour. It's one of the things that makes building your own army so cool, but I'm starting to go from like, oh, I like the way they've like made that feel like a proper Dark Eldar move, to going, there's like 8 million things now that all do similar stuff and are worded slightly differently, but it's pretty much the same thing, and I've had enough of flavour now. Just give me the rule. Tell me what it does. Yeah.
I mean, just going back to the universal rules quickly, I'm just reminded, like, again, back in 2nd edition, it was also something that was very prevalent throughout fantasy, throughout all of its editions, pretty much. But like, you had things like, all the different types of psychology rules, like, stupidity, hatred, frenzy, that kind of thing.
Yep. Immune psychology, terror, fear, all of them, yeah.
Yeah. Nice and simple, like, this unit, like, dwarves hate orcs. Okay, we get it. Yeah, it's all kind of thing, Nice and simple.
And for the love of God, if you're not going to do that, can you write the rules that go along with what each unit has access to on the bloody thing that's on the Codex? So, like, if there's a universal special rule, like tactical, like the Doctrines or Angels of Death, could you just write, this unit has these abilities, boom, 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 see page whatever. That would be enough, just to remind you that, oh yeah, Space Marines do that. Oh yeah, I can do this. Because, sorry, I'm an idiot. I will forget half the rules in my Codex because I don't get to play enough, and it's too bloody complicated. And I know I'm whinging, and I know I'm moaning, and I know. But at the same time, we're all veterans now. We've all been hobbying decades. We're now into at least our 2nd decade of hobbying, pretty much. So,
well, 3rd for me.
Yeah, point taken. But
I also want to point out it's been about half an hour. I've only touched about one thing in the news.
It's Adeptus Podcastus. The side points and tangents are the best thing about the show, and everybody knows it.
True.
Also, I feel like if anyone has watched anything I've done, tangents make half my content, and anytime I show up on anyone else's show, it becomes that, but worse.
I mean, in fairness, you still got a way to go before you compete with Sniper and Whip, but hey.
That's true. They are excellent at tangents.
like if they were on a podcast right now, we would have a conversation about, like, getting your tea confiscated at the airport or hunting for Battenberg or something. I don't know.
But anyway, he mentions Battenberg.
I know, it's our running joke. It will never die. It's like Matt Hardy. He will never die.
Indeed.
So, going back to the news briefly, just to get things on track, the Black Library Coming Soon page has updated for listings for December and January, and for December there's absolutely fuck all.
That's because there is a preview for Black Library reveals on December the 4th. I wouldn't be surprised if they're keeping things up their sleeve.
Possibly, yes. But currently, for December, for Age of Sigmar, we have the Hammers of Sigmar novel called First Forged, which I'm sure you'll probably be interested in, Tack.
No.
No, really?
No,
okay.
Sorry, I like Stormcast, but Hammers of Sigmar are boring. They're not like Ultramarines levels of boring, but they're boring. And I don't...
So Imperial Fists.
Kind of.
Controversial take there.
Is it controversial? Is it low?
They just
everyone knows. The only reason that Imperial Fists get any airtime these days is because of Valrak. That's it. He's the only person who likes them. He's just driving them forward with sheer bloody mindedness. No one else cares. And I will stand by that forever. And it's also why anytime Imperial Fists come up in any video, I immediately start slagging them off. To be honest, it's more just become its own running joke at this point. I don't really care about them. I don't hate them. It's just more fun to be vocal about how little I care about Imperial Fist than it is to say nothing. So that's, yeah. Also, it plays with the whole Iron Warriors thing. And even though I don't have an Iron Warriors army anymore, and I haven't had one for years, I still feel just that little bit, just that tiny bit of loyalty. Way back from third, way back from my first ever army, I'm still like, there's rivalry between the two. And even though I don't own either, Imperial Fist still lose.
Yeah, this is that's like me with Space Wolves. Exactly the same.
Anyway, hi Valrak.
Yes, hi.
So going back to the book releases, we're also getting the Gotrek Gunnison collection, which includes the novels Goreslayer, Gitslayer, Soulslayer, 3 novellas, and a brand new, quote, never before seen tale, which I'm assuming is going to be a short story.
Probably. Now, those 3 books are all very, very good. I binged on the Gotrek books, actually. I read all 3 of those in very quick succession. Will note, Realmslayer is missing. Like, the actual introduction to how Gotrek actually turned up and his first time with Malineth, etc., is not included. So, for me, I started at Ghoulslayer. I didn't need any context because I knew who Gotrek was, but I didn't know anything about Malineth. I only knew what she wanted because David Geimer, etc., happened to lay it out quite clearly for me. Or was it Darius Hinks by this point? It might have been Darius Hinks. Can't remember when he took over.
Was Realmslayer the audio drama?
It was the first Gotrek thing. It was the one that Brian Blessed narrated, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I forgot he did that. I forgot Brian Blessed narrated. Oh my god.
Well, he played Gotrek to be more exact, but...
Amazing.
But no, it's one of those, I think that would have been better with Realmslayer included, just to give people all the context. It works perfectly well without it, but those 3 are very good on their own and have a nice little arc to them, but it would be even better if Realmslayer was included.
I don't know, maybe they'll include like a little voucher for like the audio book or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
It would be a nice idea, but they probably won't. But just saying, keep an eye on Games Workshop. Keep it
or just, print Realmslayer.
True. But that means but considering if it was like an audio drama, Realmslayer, you'd have to rewrite it, wouldn't you? To actually add things like, Gotrek walked over to here rather than just having him talk.
They released the script as a thing. They just released the script for you to buy.
There's a difference between a script and actually having it written as an actual book, though, because having like, insert noise of something here kind of thing, I would assume.
Yeah, I suppose so. You're right.
I have to admit, I one of the things that I did a while ago was there's an audio drama podcast called Old Gods of Appalachia, which I absolutely love, and I was told that you could get the scripts from their website, and I was like, sometimes I can't listen to it. If I'm like looking after the girls, I can't like have my headphones in and ignore them. So I like having something to read if they're doing something. That would be nice. So I thought I would try and catch up a little bit because I'm a bit behind. And I got about halfway through reading one of the scripts and went, they're good scripts. And when you're listening to it, it's amazing. When you're reading it, it is not good because it misses all the like atmosphere. And all of the stuff that makes it, like half the stuff that makes it enjoyable is the performance and the kind of ambient sounds and the way it's constructed and the pauses, like the gaps are a big thing to set up tension and mood and stuff. And you just don't get that from reading a script.
Yeah. Also coming out for Age of Sigmar in January is God Eater's Son, which is that chaos-focused novel, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes, I do want that one, actually.
And we're also getting the paperback releases of Soulslayer and Godsbane. Now, for 40k, in January we're getting the paperback edition of Kingmaker, and we're getting the release of Wrath of the Lost, which is a Flesh Terrors novel focusing apparently on a Primaris chaplain, judging by the cover.
I mean, Flesh Terrors is always a nice thing to read.
Absolutely. In December for Horus Heresy, we're getting the Heirs of the Emperor anthology, which is basically the previous anthologies all collected into one massive hardback book, but also with 5 additional never-before-seen short stories. So that'll be interesting there. And also coming out in January, we're getting the release of Garrow, Knight of Grey, the new Siege of Terra novella.
Yes, please.
In which he faces off against Mortarion, which means this has to take place before the events of Warhawk, because that's where, Mortarion, kicks the bucket, proverbially. And I'm calling it now. This is the book where Garrow dies. Calling it now.
Brave call. He does need to get out of the way somewhere.
I mean, he's facing off against Mortarion, and this is before Mortarion gets killed by the Khan, so...
Yeah.
Seems like a good exit point, to be honest.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be underwhelming. It would be a good way to go.
Absolutely. And in January, we get in the paperback release of Mortis as well.
Good.
Again, as Tack said earlier, we'll probably get some more reveals this coming weekend in regards to the Black Library preview.
Yes, it will have already happened by the time this episode comes out, but it is a thing.
Any predictions anyone wants to make for that preview?
I think they will show the cover of End and they'll do something on End and the End and the Death. That will get a segment because they haven't talked about it at all apart from the back cover and front cover.
Makes sense, yep.
That's all I'm really going to commit to because I can't think of it unless because they're not going to do another
Dawn of
Primarch
Fire
novel.
book?
A what?
Well, new Dawn of Fire book?
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. I don't think they're going to do another Primarch book because
Well, we're still
Sanguinius...
waiting for Horus.
But it's just because Sanguinius' one literally just came out. I don't think they're going to do the next one yet. They're going to let the hype for that one die down first.
Well, actually, no, they might do because they revealed Sanguinius' book first, and then they revealed Rogel Dawn's book, and then they released Rogel Dawn's book.
But it's Sang.
I know it's Sang.
And it's Dawn.
People love saying no one gave a toss about Dawn, apparently.
It's
Exactly.
true. People only care about Sanguinius. The other one's irrelevant.
Indeed. But yeah, I'm not sure what we'll see. I'm looking forward to finding out. So I know what my reading list is because I've nearly actually finished, apart from a couple of AOS novels, I've actually finished my reading list for 40k. So I might get onto that later if we have time.
I'm trying to think about what books are out that, like, 2 parts in a trilogy that need a third. Like, we still need a third Iron Hands novel, after, Voice of Mars and Eye of Medusa. That needs finishing off.
They're not going to do the next book in...
I'll tell you what we might get a reveal for. Possibly the third Black Legion novel.
Possible, though ADB's not busy. That Dan Abnett's writing End of the Death.
Yeah, because the last book ADB did was Echoes of Eternity, so he might actually be working on the next Black Legion novel.
Maybe, but we know ADB, no disservice to him, he's quite slow. So I wouldn't expect that anytime soon.
True. Because how long has it been since Black Legion came out? A few years ago, wasn't it?
A good few years ago. I want to say 2016, but was the first one.
Yeah, that was Talent of Horus, wasn't it?
I think so.
Although they do they do announce stuff, and then there can be an absurd gap between the announcement and the thing coming out. So
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just typed in Black Legion release date looking for the novel, and it came up as 1937.
Oops.
What? Wow.
It turns out it's a film starring Humphrey Bogart.
Oh.
I was like, wrong one.
Now I kind of want to know what that film's about.
Given it's 1937, I can guess.
Right, okay, so Talon the Horus came out in 2014 and Black Legion came out in 2017. So about 3 years.
For 5 years since the last one.
So we're due to have it then.
That would be nice, especially given that Arvidon's very busy at the moment with Arcs of Omen. It could be interesting to see how he's got there, I suppose, like the run up to the fall of Cadia. What was he doing? How did he get set up? Or maybe just after Cadia, he's just retreated licking his wounds after being shanked by Celestine. So what's he doing?
Who knows?
Although he did... It might be... That might be like a delay. Didn't he have a kid fairly recently, ADB? Or am I... When I say recently...
Oh, he might have done. I know he took some time away from Twitter because he had a kid.
I'm pretty sure, like, in the last... I want to say in the last year? So
that sounds about right, because he hasn't really been active on Twitter at all, has he? So I'm pretty sure.
No, although I think that was like just a thing of I'm actually doing okay, and Twitter's a hellhole, so let's steer clear of that for a bit. But I'm pretty sure he's been having like he's had time away, and yeah, okay. So it was actually late last year. He had another kid, so
right.
It might be that he's had. You know, there'll be time for her kind of folded into taking some time for himself and stuff.
Yeah, and he had to write Echoes of Eternity, which keep anyone busy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see.
Completely understandable. So
yeah, we'll see. I suppose what comes out on Sunday. The comments will already know, and we'll look like idiots as per.
That's the fun thing about doing predictions, though, because you do them when you have no idea, and then. No matter when you release the video, there will be comments like going, wow, you were really wrong on that. It's like, yeah, but I said this before the thing happened. It's not my fault.
To be honest, I still get comments on some of my videos with people saying that, actually, this book says this about so-and-so, even though the book they're referring to came out about 3 years after I made the video.
Oh, don't. There's a whole, like, genre of comments on, like, on videos that are just, I didn't look at the publish date. You can just file them all under that. It's like, wow, you're completely wrong about this. It's like, well, at the time of recording it, in 2017, I was actually on point. But it's been 5 years, so give me a break.
The worst thing for me was releasing a video about Guilliman the week Guilliman got resurrected.
Oh.
Oh, no.
So I'd recorded... edited, got the script done, published it, and 3 days before I published it, Guilliman was resurrected. And it's like, right, well, everything I just said is completely out of date now. For the love of, like, I literally could not do anything about it because I'd already edited it all together.
Oh, that is the worst. That is the worst. Like, I get salty enough when I do a video and I'm like, you know, just covering whatever the latest releases are. And then the minute I set it live, they go, here's a bunch of important new models. That's annoying enough for me. But like a major lore event, it was like, my work is done. And it's out of date before I even put it out. Brilliant. That's not. Oh.
Yeah, that one stung.
It feels like they do it intentionally sometimes. I know it's not true. They don't care. They're not watching to see what time we upload. But I swear to God, there have been some points where I've sat there and I've had all day and I've waited. I've waited until the last possible minute to record something because, you know, there comes a point in the day where I have to go and, you know, look after children and feed them and things, and I can't just sit there and wait and see what happens. And it will get to like 4:30 and I'll go, you know what? Nothing else is happening today. Let's cover what's happened over the last couple of days. Let's
10 minutes later.
Yeah, I put the video up, and immediately all the comments are like, "Oh, you missed this thing." And then I look at the published date of the video, or like the time of the video, and it is the same time they release an article that's like, "Here's 18 new Primaris units," or whatever. And it's like, really? Who publishes articles at 4:45? What is wrong with you? What are you doing?
Oh, the pain.
Oh, God.
So I think we all need some stress relief. Allow me to do that by letting us all gush over Armies on Parade for a bit.
Because I thought you were going to say you're going to gush over Lady Helmawr, but...
Well, I could do that too.
Yes.
That model is...
so good.
All right, we'll do Lady Helmawr first.
Yes, Lady Helmawr.
I can't get enough.
From my understanding, she's basically the new planetary governess of Necromunda, and she has the most amazing hat and shoulder pads of all time.
Oh yeah. So she's the 13th heir of the current Lord Helmawr, and when I saw the model, like I kind of clicked on it, and I was like, okay, why is she even here? Because I saw a few people also say this, like on like Facebook and Twitter and stuff, and they were like, "Why is the daughter of the ruler of the whole
you
thing.
See, if you read the book Cinderak Rising, the Cinderak Essential, whatever it's called,
Burning.
it explains it. You know, the new Necromunda expansion.
I haven't read that yet, so I was just like, what the hell is she even doing? Like, kicking around with gangers, it makes no sense. And then I read down and it was like, she's a sociopath, and I went, okay, sold.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, from my understanding from what I've read of the book, it's been a while since I've read it, so I may be misremembering some things, but basically, the current Lord Helmawr, Gerontius Helmawr, he basically kicked the bucket, and there's basically a war of succession between all of his heirs, and this Lady Hera, she was an illegitimate daughter who was made legitimate prior to Gerontius' death, and now she's basically killing off all of her brothers and sisters, so she'll be put in charge. And which means, at some point, we're going to see a conflict between her and Cal Jericho. Yes, fucking please.
Yeah, it's the one model, like, I remember having all the whinges we had about Constantine Valdor being incredibly over-designed and extra. And this is the one model that gets away with being incredibly over-the-top and extra.
Because it's absurd. Like, I complained about Valdor, about how completely, like, I like Valdor, kind of, but he just seems so busy. She's really busy. She's just as bad, but for some reason, there's just something about it that works in a way that I didn't find that Valdor did initially.
With Helmawr, I think the reason why it works is because it also helps convey that arrogant air of nobility about her.
Yeah, and I think what's really useful is most of the model is cloak and armor. That's it. Like, yes, the armor's got filigrees and gemstones, and she's got a fancy hat, but most of the model is taken up by her cloak, which is fur on what, well, I assume I'm going to say fur or wool on one side, but I know it isn't, and cloth on the outside. And that takes up about most of the model. And what isn't that is taken up by the silvered armor. Can we also point out how absolutely stupid her waistline looks? Like, she's got the most pinchable waistline I've ever seen.
I'm having to assume, just for my own sanity, that the cloak is making it look like she's thinner than she is, because otherwise she has no rib cage.
No.
There's no bones in there. She's just I don't know. Unless she actually has had them all surgically removed, there is no way that she is that shape.
In fairness, this does also fit with, what practices nobility and royalty used to do back in the day with these stupidly tight corsets and stuff like that.
Yes, they're stupidly tight.
That's
but then there's I have my waistline has a diameter of 50% of my fucking hips.
She's been using filters on Instagram is what's happened. That's what's gone on.
I mean, you can't necessarily rule out things like cybernetic augmentation.
It's true. She might. I said it as a joke. She might have no rib cage, but her spine might be made of iron. Like, it's not. It's possible. It's a thing that could happen. It's just she's so like that. I keep looking at the model and thinking that it shouldn't actually work compared to other Necromunda models. But something that I swear the design team for Necromunda has is essentially a magical ability whereby everything in Necromunda looks a little bit different. And it doesn't really have necessarily a cohesive style, because Cawdor look nothing like the Goliaths. That was my air compressor for my airbrush. Interesting. Sorry.
It's funny you say it, because I just coughed at the same time that went off, so...
It's off! I don't know why it just did that. At least it should be. So, Goliaths look nothing like Cawdor, who look nothing like Escher. And I've forgotten the name of the weird one. Not the weird ones. There's two weird ones.
Van
So, Delac and Van Saar, yeah. They don't look anything like each other. In a way, it's like the most disparate skirmish game because they look totally different.
Yeah.
But somehow, she looks like she belongs with any one of those, even though she doesn't look like any of them.
Yeah,
I don't know how they do it.
She wouldn't run with the Ash Nomads, but that's about it. But
and
no, I think it's really good. Sorry.
And sticking with Necromunda, the Corpse Guild are finally getting models as well.
Oh, so that's another one where I love these models as well. People, I want to take like a vote here. I think the skeletons on the shoulder pads of the Pale Consort, I think they're holding spoons. People have said no, they're like Ankh symbols, but an Ankh has got like a crosswise, like a horizontal line below the circular section, right? These don't have that. I think she actually has skeletons with spoons, and I refuse to believe otherwise.
Let's take a look at the official art.
Daggers is my guess.
They're daggers.
Daggers. Oh, come on the model they look like spoons.
Yeah, it's the pommel that looks like a spoon.
Well, I'm changing that when I end up with these, because I will end up with these because I want to paint them, and I'm going to green stuff spoons, because I just thought corpse starch, spoons, skeletons with spoons because they collect the meat for corpse starch. That is amazing. It's better than daggers. I'm just going to say it.
I also want to say that I absolutely love the little short fat plague doctor man.
What are they called?
Short fat plague
The
doctor
Bone
man.
Scrivener.
Yes, he is adorable, and I want to protect him.
He's amazing, and frankly, would not look out of place in Turnip 28 either, honestly.
Jeez. I mean, to be honest, I'm thinking Vostroyan plus Plague Doctor is the vibe I get.
Oh, there you go, Vostroyan Apothecary, there you go. Medicaid.
Oh, that's a great call. Yeah, with the hat and the fur collar. He would sit in a Vostroyan command squad real easy.
Yeah, I'm quite proud of that one. But no,
he's so good.
Yeah, what you were saying earlier, Necromunda is so disparate, yet it feels cohesive. Like, yeah, it does, and everything just seems to work. I don't know why it works, but genuinely, my favourite miniature ranges, 95% of the time, are Warcry, Underworlds, and Necromunda.
Yeah, I've got the same way now, where like especially the new Warcry box,
the Jade Obelisk and the Chameleon Skinks.
The Jade Obelisk are some of my favourite models they've ever done. I love them. They are so good.
That's a big call.
I couldn't tell you why. Like, I think it's just one of those like just very subjective, like, I was going to say art things. Does it count as art? You know what I mean? Like, there's just the aesthetic of them is so well done to me, and there's so many little details, and yeah, they just have a style that feels completely unique, but it still fits super well into the setting as a whole. And yeah, I haven't got the box itself, but when it comes to pre-orders, I'm going to end up with the warband thanks to doing a bit of a split with someone, because as soon as I saw them, I was like, I haven't played Warcry in ages, but I have to have these. I really, really want to paint these.
Yeah, I had the same thing with the Cypher Lords and the Gyron ones. I've forgotten the name. The Serpent ones. And the Corvus Cabal, and the K-Knight Shadowstalkers, and the Scions of the Flame, and the 8 points Varanite ones. Like, Warcry's models are the best.
I own 4 of those, and I haven't painted any of them yet. But I was like, I need them. Yeah. I need them in my life.
I'm the same. I've got a box of well, not quite the same. I've only got one, but I do have a box of Shadowstalkers for my daughter's Arcane Army that has just sat there since I bought it at Warhammer World nearly a year ago.
The thing is, as well, also quite intimidating models. To be fair,
yes.
Like there's a lot of small details on there, and I get told off whenever I say this in any video ever. I don't classify myself as a good painter. I'm still very much learning, given I hated painting for so long.
Yeah.
But like I have a comfortable scale when it comes to things like dreadnoughts and tanks and knights and vehicles and like large infantry. I'm good. I could paint those all day, and I think for the most part I can do a decent job of them. When it comes to just normal, smaller infantry size models, I am lost in the weeds immediately. I'm just like, I don't know where to start with this. Jesus Christ. There's so many small bits, and I've got to paint skin, and skin's impossible. Even just cheating. It's like,
4 armies of elves.
I can't do it. It's the main reason that I wasn't too bothered about doing a bunch of wolves for my Soulblight, because they're wolves, and all I needed to do was dry brush the shit out of them, and they would be fine. And it worked. But every time it came to doing something that had a face, like a human face, I'm out. I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. I didn't paint skin for about a decade. It was like 2018. I sat down with myself and went, right, Daughters of Cain, I am going to learn how to paint skin properly. And I did. But I had to sit down and commit to it for my Daughters of Cain project to learn how to paint skin. Literally, I had a Stormcast army and I kit bashed every single character that did not have a helmet to have a helmet because I didn't want to paint skin.
Yep, that is what I do. That is also why almost every single D&D character I've ever had a model for has had a helmet on, or in the case of my rogue, had an eye patch and hair that went down over her face, so that the only real bit of skin to paint was one cheek, and that was it. Like, skin is the worst. I absolutely hate painting skin, and I avoid it wherever possible, to the extent where it's like, have you ever painted a full face of anything? No. Not once. I don't want to do it. Don't ask me to. Leave me alone.
Yep. Relatable. And then I got Bliss Barb Archers, and now I hate my life. They're so annoying to paint, but I'm not going on that rant today. Right. Speaking of actual humans doing actual human things, well, ish, Armies on Parade. I mentioned this like 10 minutes ago and we got sidetracked again. The displays are ridiculous again, and I wanted to shout a few out. So we'll just go down the article, but 40k, second place, there is an Orc one, which is like a Mech Boy workshop, and I am just in awe. It is ridiculously crowded, but still makes total sense as a Mech Boy workshop. So,
yep.
The winner of 40k, indeed, a Blood Angels Drop Pod Assault 1, mainly probably because they glued drop pods and little mini Storm Reavens to the wall, which is probably what gave them the part of the W.
It's honestly so good, but I was like looking at this. I think what they did to get the different size drop pods, so they've got two normal ones where they've just put like half the drop pod against the backdrop of the scene. The one up front is the Dreadnought drop pod that you used to be able to get from Forge World,
which is bigger.
Which is why they're at different scales. Because it took me a moment. The first time I saw it, I was like, how have they two of those 3D printed? And then I thought, well, actually, no, probably. That looks like it's got the symbols on the doors, which I wondered whether that was like a 3D printing thing as well. But I think what they did is they took the scaled up version from Forge World, because it's not even in production anymore, I don't think, that one. And they used that to make the larger one that's in the forefront, which is genius. That is so good.
Agreed. Age of Sigmar's top two. I'm just going to put them in together. There's a Cruel Boys display that won silver, and oh my freaking god. Like, I don't have words. And first place was the Crimson Keep. You know, the one with the Vampire Lord. I've forgotten his name. It's going to bother me now. The named Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon. That one.
Von Carstein.
No.
No?
The one who's not
No.
No, he's a mortal. I'm gonna check.
That's gonna bug me as well now. Where's the War Scroll?
Soulblight.
Dieter Hellschnitt.
Gravelords Heroes. For God's sake. I'm literally scrolling through so much junk right now.
Yeah.
Go away, cookies thing. Characters, right. Laugavai, Radikar. Olga, Verata, Manfred.
Prince Vordry.
Vordry! That was his name.
Yep.
Yeah.
Get there in the end.
We got there in the end. But yeah, him and his coming out of a blood castle. I'm sorry, what? Yes! Inject it into my veins. And yes, I don't mind if that gives me a vampiric curse. Inject it into my goddamn veins.
I want to know how they did that castle. Like, is it printed? Like, is it printed in red see-through resin? Because that's
casted and then just let it drip?
Yeah, it is so good. I desperately want to know how they did that. And I think, looking at it, like sections down the bottom, there's lights either in it or behind it. Yeah. Because it's like illuminated at points, but it's not painted. You can see the shape of the bulbs. It's amazing.
Indeed. And the models aren't half bad either.
Yeah. It's just kind of, you look at the thing and you go, that is insane how they do that. And then you see the shading on the wings of the zombie dragon and I'm like, that's not fair. Why is one person allowed to be able to do all of that?
Yeah. Speaking of dioramas that have awesome images and speaking of Necromunda, the best of the rest category was won by a Necromunda inspired diorama called The Outcast, which is a really cool looking army. I can't really tell what anything is half the time, but it's very bloody cool.
I'm loving the little converted tank in the bottom right.
Is that a grot tank?
No, they've taken one of these scenery pieces. Taken a 40k scenery piece, the little tractor thing.
Oh yeah.
Then they've put the turret off. I want to say it's the is it the impulsor for the Primaris? That's the transport.
Yeah.
It looks like they've taken an impulsor turret, then they've put the assault cannon off a normal box knot onto the front of it. It's so well done. It's like just such a weird little thing to throw in there, but it looks great.
Agreed. There are a few others that didn't win anything, but the judges wanted to shout out. There's a Sisters of Silence to be more exact, diorama, which has got one of the most amazing, like, that's not fabric, but it is, but it isn't, like Lady Olinda style, but on a statue, which is awesome. A Necron thing that I think probably broke several laws of physics in order to get built, because what the hell's?
I tell you what this reminds me of. There was a Golden Demon entry years and years ago that actually won the Slayer. Oh, sorry, not this Necron. I'm thinking of the other Necron one. The one with the Crypt deck.
Yeah, I was going to do that one next.
Yeah, sorry, when you said Necron, that was the one I was looking at the time. But it reminds me of a Golden Demon thing that won the Slayer Sword years ago, of Blood Angels fighting Nids, and you had like this one sanguinary guard basically flying up in the sky, but there's like a whole ladder of gaunts like climbing after him. I'll try and find him 1 second.
Yeah, because the idea is this Cryptek is so powerful that he's just summoning warriors and Canoptechs to propel him into the sky. And he's just an omniscient being. Is that the power of a god in the palm of my hand is the award that they were given. And the OSL work is ludicrously good on the actual central ball.
Yeah, that is so nicely done.
I have never seen this before.
Oh yeah, that one. Oh my god.
Okay, that
reminds me of that. Yeah.
Yeah. There was another.
Just the amount of stuff to paint is making my brain hurt. It's really. I'm like looking at it, going, one of those models would be a challenge. What do you even? Where do you start on a diorama like that?
Yeah, like, where'd you get the idea? Like, that's what I'm wondering with half of this is, how do you even get the idea? Never mind have the skill to pull it off.
Yeah.
I think they actually did, the person who did that actually did a video of that, actually.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Actually, on those two, the Necron one and that Blood Angels one, there's a painter. I forget forget what their tag is. I think they're on, I don't know if they're on Instagram, but they're on Twitter, which is, I think, is it Baharoth, the Cry of Old Paint? That's it.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of them, yeah.
He does absolutely insane, like, dioramas. Like, the scale of them is just incredible. The one that he was working on that I saw last was, in fact, there's a, I'll put a picture into the thing. He's put it on his bedside table, as you do. But the size, just the sheer scale of what he builds. Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Like, how does that thing even stand up?
I don't know. I have no idea.
What? Like, it looks like it's flying. What?
It's absolutely incredible. Like his
Does it have
his
like a
work
built-in
is,
gyroscope or something?
What?
The scale of some of the stuff he does is absolutely incredible. He's one of my favorite people like that I follow because every time I see what he's doing, I have a moment of that can't be real. Like that can't be what it looks like. In fact, here's the thing he's working on at the moment, which is a Guilliman enthroned scene.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's amazing!
It's absolutely perfect. Like I don't know if you ever like if anyone listening doesn't have I say doesn't have a Twitter account, maybe now's not the best time to make one because who knows how long that platform is going to be available for. But if you wanted to find like just incredible like hobby inspiration every now and again, he's one of the people that I just recommend to people straight away. I'm just like, if you want to sit and gawk at something for half an hour and pick out a bajillion details, then you need to follow this person because what they do is insane.
Yep, that is true. And that brings us very nicely to the last entry from Armies on Parade I want to mention. From New Hammer Personified, with the return of Guilliman and all that, to Old Hammer Personified.
Oh, yeah, it's so good.
This is like, it looks like it's like a ye olde style painting, the old Warhammer logo. It looks
a bunch of old Warhammer models.
Yeah, like old Bretonnian knights and
the old plastic wood elf and plastic skink, plastic goblin.
Yeah, I don't know most
plastic
of these
Chaos
models.
Warrior under the 40. The old plastic Chaos Warrior in the background. Oh my god.
Yeah, that is.
Oh wait! I see it. I see a Tomb King that's not necessarily Old Hammer. Disqualified. That's me being nitpicky bastard. But hey.
Well, they've been retconned out of the game.
Oh, no, the old plastic Chaos Dwarf from 4th edition. Oh
wait, I've got one more Old Hammer.
Good.
I forgot I missed one. 2nd edition Orcs in Armies on Parade.
Yes.
And I love how the caption is the "We Finally Made It Boss" award, because they're such old models that never would have been entered into this kind of thing. And then finally, 30 years later, they're here. I don't know if it's actually 2nd edition, but...
That buggy's actually 1st edition.
Jesus wept.
There's some cool stuff in the staff showcase as well this year. I will say, how am I going to put this without sounding like the most miserable person on earth? It bugs me a little bit that staff showcases go at the top,
not just the bottom. I don't know. I don't know how to phrase this in a way that is not going to make me sound like I'm trying to minimize other people's accomplishments, because that's not what I'm going for. Because, there is some incredible painting on display with the staff showcases. Way better than anything I could do. And I'm fully James
aware
Bell's
of that.
in particular just makes me cry.
Oh, it's incredible. The workmanship that's gone into it, the time spent, the talent, just the skill learning how to paint that well. It's not a comment on that, because that's clearly exceptional, and I think not being recognised because your staff is not fair. You should still be recognised. You should still have some sort of public acknowledgement of what you've done, because they might be staff, but they're also hobbyists as well. So being kind of just ignored because, oh, well, you work for the company, I don't think that's the right way to go.
No.
That being said, there is a certain advantage that comes with being a staff. It's not like any sort of particular secret that staff get things like discounts and they get access to stuff and they're able to do things that would take anyone else a bit more in terms of material resources, I guess is the way to put it. And I kind of feel like it being at the top, that does provide an advantage. Whereas if it was just nestled partway down the article, it would feel less like that. And it's such a nitpicky thing. And in some ways it feels like daft saying it, but I think it always feels like a little difficult to judge when it comes to stuff like this, because it's a case of not wanting to minimize the ability of people who work for Games Workshop just because they work for Games Workshop. Like, they wouldn't be on there at all if, they just dunked the models in a tub of primer and then stuck them to cardboard. It's not like that's showing up at the top of the article, but at the same time, it just feels a little like, why are the staff being showcased above
the winners?
Above the winners and the customers who don't have the same level of access?
In fairness, at the top of the page with the staff showcase, it doesn't seem they're being shown as prominently because the thumbnails are very small in comparison to the actual winning customers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true.
You can jump to each category first if you want to.
So I think the fact it's a much smaller thumbnail. It's like, by the way, here's all the staff stuff. It's all little small things. Now let's show you the good stuff with the customers kind of thing. I don't know.
I can see the argument both ways, to be honest. I see both sides of it.
It's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I think it's just like there's been stuff that I've kind of been following outside of Warhammer. Weirdly, car YouTube is a big part of my media consumption. There's weird situations where it's like people who are part of channels win events and then win the money that were part of the prize offering, but they work for the person who owns the thing, and
that
it's
feels
probably
a little bit
of it's like a little bit of that kind of bleeding through, I guess. But it's like, it's also tricky because it might be that if you don't put staff showcase up at the top there, people won't look at it. Yeah, because they'll go, well, it's staff, so I don't want to see that. Because there will be people who think that too. So it's probably a case of there being kind of a no-win situation. If it's right at the top, you might get someone like me who's not going to skip through to individual entries and just want to see all of them and go, well, why is staff right above everyone else? But then you might also get people who, if staff wasn't at the top, they'd go, well, I'm not looking at what staff did.
Yeah, I see both sides of that argument.
It's, I don't know. That's massively inconclusive, just like everything else I say, apparently.
It's fine. I wouldn't worry about it.
No, I'd say you're conclusive in regards to your argument about how the new Lord Commander Solar is actually a horse, but hey.
I don't like how... Well, I don't know. I don't like how well that video went. I literally had people go, I didn't like the model until I saw this. And I'm like, okay, that's good, but also worrying.
Yeah, the question is how many people are taking it seriously.
Yeah, the worst part of being a YouTuber sometimes is where your biggest thing that blows up is a shit post. And you're just like, oh, I spent hours and hours crafting XYZ, and here I just made a funny shit post, and it blew up.
Oh, I've embraced it at this point. I pointed out a little while ago that the shit posts get way better engagement than the actual videos.
Yep.
And so I would continue to shit post until the views improve. Because the proportions are all off. Like the top 5 horses in Warhammer 40k. That was 11,000 views. It had 1,500 likes and 310 comments. The video about the new Rogel Dawn tank had 20,000 views, 320 comments, and 1,300 likes.
Something about this does not add up.
Half the views, the horses video was way better for engagement. And I was like, until the views catch up with the engagement, you're going to get shit posts constantly. So you might as well deal with it. Yeah. I got a lot of angry responses to the horse videos. Not in the comments, but in the actual, like, I got emails from people going, you said it was about horses. What is this video? And I was like, well, to be fair, I crossed out the word horses in the title. So, I mean, the hint was there to start with. Don't come at me for this. It's not my fault. I mean, it is. I made it, but, you know.
Ah, dear.
You know,
the perks of YouTubing.
You could have put the Zote in there as like, he's like a centaur, which is a kind of a horse, so therefore he counts.
Oh, I should have done that. Oh, no. Oh, maybe I should do it. Maybe we should do a top 5 centaurs. I don't even think we have enough models to do a centaur. Really?
Beast of Chaos, say hi.
Zote.
Oh, that's fair.
Gaunts.
Kragnos.
Okay, I'm going to do centaurs, but I'm just going to make it the Zote is the winner.
Of course. That goes without saying. Oh, and you can also put a Necron Destroyers. They're kind of like centaurs, except they got like a hovercraft instead of a horse.
Oh, 100%. That's going in there. Yeah, definitely. This is... I don't want to do like a whole tangent thing again, but I just want to throw in, I'm so happy that we finally got the Necron Destroyer that we deserve.
The chunky boy.
So happy. The chunky boy with the circular thrusters on the underside and the comedically large gun.
That's the Locust, isn't it?
Yeah, the Locust Destroyer. I was so happy when they revealed that, because when Necrons were introduced and I saw concept art for the Destroyer, I was so excited, and I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Oh my god. And then they released Destroyers, and they were these piss-weak little floating platform idiots with boring thrusters. And
Did you ever see the original Destroyers?
Oh, the original ones look like flying trikes, right? Didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those didn't account to me. I wanted the Locust. It wasn't called the Locust at that point, but I wanted that.
It was
and
the
then we
grasshopper.
didn't get that when they came out in plastic, and so I was gutted.
Yeah.
When they showed that off, at that point I was convinced that Games Workshop had personally sent someone to come into my house and rifle through my like White Dwarf collection from years ago, and went, they want this. Let's give them this. And I was like, it was so happy. I loved it. Yeah. I own 4 now, and I've painted none of them.
Standard.
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, that's.
So how big is your pile of shame?
Oh, don't. It's so bad. I made like really good progress for a while. So I painted a load of stuff that I got from Archon Studio, so the company that does like Dungeons and Lasers terrain for D&D and like sci-fi settings and stuff. I painted a bunch of stuff that I got from them through Kickstarter and through like a sponsorship thing. And then they started another Kickstarter, and they were like, do you want to see what we're doing for the Kickstarter? And I said, yes. And they said, okay, we'll send you a couple of sprues. And I went, brilliant. And then an 8-kilo box showed up at my house.
8 kilos?
Yes, 8 kilos of plastic. And then what they'd sent me was 2 sprues of the new like outdoors terrain, and more boxes than I'd managed to paint of just stuff, like interior stuff. Because they were like, you like dragons, right? And I said yes, and so they sent me 8 dragons and a bunch of rooms and stretch goals and stuff, and I was doing so well, and I was making a dent, and then that arrived. And I legitimately have not opened another box of theirs since, because it crushed my spirit. Yeah. I was just like, they're going on shelves. They're going on the shelves, and one day, maybe, I will paint them. But it's such a first world problem that a company sent me stuff. But at the same time, I was like, I'm getting there. I'm painting this stuff. I painted like 5 boxes in 2 days. I'm doing so well. And then they went, here's 13 boxes. Enjoy. And then I never painted anymore because I couldn't face it. It killed me inside.
Oh dear. So I believe that'll be it for the news now. We're about an hour and a half in. Finally got it done for considering it was such a slow news week.
Yeah, slow week, an hour and 25 minutes of rambling sidetracks and gushing. Yep, that's the Podcastus episode.
Is that not what this is about, though? Is that not the whole point of a podcast?
I mean, to be honest, we haven't spoken to you for 2 goddamn years.
I know.
It's just like... I
don't like it's been that long.
I remember sitting in my parents' house on their kitchen table while they were out for dinner, and the two of us were just gushing over the new Keeper of Secrets. Like, I remember that episode.
Oh, wow. That was so long ago.
I know. It was like
it's been such a ridiculous
85.
gap as well, because I feel like, I just did a quick Google, and we did 53, 73, 52, 73, and 101. So, like, it's not like every other week, but I feel like there was a consistency there.
Yeah, it's like once a year.
And then there's just been 2 years of nothing.
Not for lack of trying on either of our parts, let's be fair.
I don't like it.
No apologies are needed, but no, we understand how busy life is. Anyway, before we get too melancholy, I read Outgunned this week.
Oh, yeah.
It was good. I read it in like 2 days.
That's the one about the pilot and the propagandist, isn't it?
Correct, yes. Spoilers?
How long ago did that come out?
Oh, now you're asking. I've had it on my list for a while. Hold on. Outgunned 40k novel.
That was back in
Was released
August. Oh, yeah, we're past spoilers because by the time this episode comes out, it'll be December. So
yeah, that's fine. This book was interesting. So the propagandist is deployed to some backwater world from the central system world. It's a wine exporter and not much else because the orc infestation has gotten too big and they've called in the guard, in particular the Aeronautica, because it's a swampy backwater. He arrives. The hero of the piece, Lucille von Schard, turns up, saves the day, has some not very witty and mostly just derogatory banter with the pilot, and on they go. And essentially, it's a story of kind of not everything wrong with the Imperium. It's not. But it talks about, like, the futility of a lot of the things. Like, he's trying to produce this propaganda pict, trying to depict things and try and get people to sign up and diddly-diddly-do, but make it realistic as well. He's got these 3, not servo skulls, special capture skulls, who have got the skulls of previous propagandists that he uses to do different things. One's for, like, high-octane lenses, one's for audio, one's for whatever. And as he gets involved, he's, like, trying to capture stuff with the Aeronautica, and he can't because he's stuck on the ground. Meanwhile, he then gets himself sequestered to join a squad of Tempestus Scions on a Valkyrie, which happens to be piloted by Shard because she was drunk but no one else was available. And they go out into the swamp, rescue the corpse and a package of a dead colleague, and return. But the servo skull gets left behind. The good one, the really good high capture one, gets left behind because Shard has to run off. And that skull then tracks it halfway across the planet to get back to him, allowing him to broadcast a warning of an incoming orc attack. Anyway, the crux of the novel comes later, where Shard is grounded, and so is he, because the planetary governor is a cow. Not an actual one, but you know what I mean.
That would be a twist.
It would. We'll come to the planetary governor in just a minute. And what they do is they are struggling with this thing known as the Green Storm. It's a myth kind of thing. There's a big storm front, and pilots have been talking about bullets raining from the sky, green lightning, yada yada. The propagandist has some little bits about this bit of the green lightning side of things, and him and Shard, Shard gets him and steal a vulture, I think it is, in order to actually go in there. Because one of the capture skulls is able to pierce through and identify greenskin technology. There's a bombing raid earlier in the novel where an entire fleet dies except for the bomber that Shard and Simlex, such as the propagandist, are in, blow up an orc factory on the ground because the servo skull detects it. So that's what she wants. She doesn't get that because that servo skull has been locked down by the planetary governor for the whole tracking him across half the planet thing. And they fly out and they find a massive orc air fortress in the heart of the Green Storm. That is what it is. That's where bullets are raining from. It's a massive air fortress. And they do a bit. They blow something up. They crash in the swamp. And Shard just is like, she's so cocky. Like, she's not a Mary Sue. She acts like one, but she's not. It's all a front. And she's like, the esteemed flight captain Lucille von Shard would never run away from danger. Like, basically, the propagandist is there just to make sure Shard doesn't embarrass the family, kind of thing. Because they're all from the scholar progeny. There's like 8 of them. One's a commissar, one's a confessor, one's this, one's that, and she's a pilot. Anyway, some orcs die. Shard gets very hurt. They get back home. Shard is grounded. Simlex is arrested. And it turns out the orcs then turn up and wipe the entire guard out. The Imperium loses.
Well, that was a twist.
Indeed. It had not been going well throughout the whole book, and it's implied they're running out of planes, they're running out of pilots, they're running out of everything. But the orcs just keep coming and coming and coming because they've got this flying fortress that nobody knows about. And so the orcs eventually win.
So what you're saying is that they were outgunned?
Yep.
Roll credits.
However, the book does not end there.
Oh.
The final section is Shard, Simlex, and the pilot who brought Simlex planetside, who's basically a mechanical. He's not a pilot. He's an unsanctioned mechanical because all the tech priests got shot. And what he does is he installs, I think it's Iwazar, one of the 3 servo skulls, into the last remaining flyer, which is the Thunderbolt of Shard, the last one standing. And it flies out into the Green Storm alone. But what they do, through this servo skull connected to the propagandist who is groundside, they create a hollow projection of a previous encounter where an orc got murdered. And then, I shit you not, hollow project the entire Imperial fleet into the sky to make the orcs think there's a massive fleet there, meaning that when the orcs scramble to attack them, they're just shooting nothing and so shoot each other because there's that much dakka in the air.
Right.
Yeah, I know. This illusion eventually wears off. Shard does end up blowing up the Green Storm through nonsense, mostly by targeting certain things and blowing them up. And the main story ends as she runs for orbit, sort of think Mass Effect 3 style, right? Flying away from the explosion, running for orbit. And the epilogue picks up. Simlex has been thoroughly demoted, had his servo skulls that were still working taken away. He still gets 1 because it's broken. And Shard gets her promotion. The Katakan jungle fighters get sent to clean up because what's actually happened is the reason why everything's gone to shit on this planet is the Eldari gave the planetary governor some sort of thing called Isha's Needle, which has just been poisoning the planet. She was arrested off screen. And the book ends on, essentially, oh yeah, the guy I knew is still in touch. He tells me Shard's doing well. I haven't heard from her, obviously. I'm just a menial now. But when he closes his eyes, even though he's no way possibly connected to the servo skull that was locked into her Thunderbolt, he still gets sensations of flying through the air at lightning speed and all the stuff that Shard is doing. And it's like, even though we're apart, there's still a connection there. Like, there's no romantic interest, there's no subplot like that, they're not even friends. But it's just, I've skimmed over a lot of the details, I have, but it's just a really good read. Like, I wanted to keep flicking and flicking and flicking and flicking and flicking the pages and keep finding out what happened next at every single opportunity, because it was just really good to read. and ended in a nice way, a realistic way. There's not, and then they won the end. No, they lost through a Hail Mary. It half worked, allowing the Imperium to actually clean up the problem later using Katakan jungle fighters. And they're just like, oh yeah, you messed around making our propaganda picked. We're just going to pass that to somebody else and demote you. Shard looks like a hero, because that's probably what the propagandists to replace Simlex did. And the Imperium just moves on. Story over.
I kind of like the idea that it takes something kind of exceptional beyond Imperium gooder to resolve an issue as severe as that, to be honest.
Yeah, like the orcs have been a backwater problem on that planet for donkey's years. Like, not a problem, something the PDF could deal with, and then all of a sudden it just starts getting crazier and crazier and crazier. And so they call in the Guard, they call in the Aeronautica, and then the orcs just get to start looting. And it gets worse. And it spirals from there, but luckily they deal with the problem through a massive BS Hail Mary. But it doesn't feel contrived. Like, we knew the Servo Skull could do that. We knew it had been implanted into the ships before, because they did that when they went to fight the Green Storm. Nothing felt contrived. Nothing felt like an ass pull. It just felt almost logical, which for a 40k novel is goddamn saying something.
That's, to be honest, if something's set up significantly in advance and then they use it, that's all good for me. That's just standard good literature. It's when something like completely random comes out of nowhere and fixes the issue that it starts to get a bit silly. But I mean, that sounds well planned out and decently foreshadowed. So
yeah, Denny Flowers did a really good job with Outgunned. I don't really think there's any room for a sequel. I don't think the book warrants one, because it's not that style of book, but it is a very good read. And if you're looking for a little bit of shooty bang bang and a little bit of imperial politics for good measure, you might want to consider Outgunned as an option, especially if you don't like Space Marines, because they don't even mention the word Space Marines bar once.
Hooray.
Also, orcs win for a bit. That doesn't happen very often.
That's nice. That's not that. To be honest, there needs to be more books where the Imperium loses. Just flat out loses. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Like,
I mean, there's a good chunk of the Beast Arises series.
That's true. Yeah.
But I think the problem with Imperium loses is usually Imperium loses and then ass pulls their way back to a win by the end of the book and or series. See also The Beast Arises.
I mean, I mentioned it in the previous episode, but like the last book in the Vaults of Terror series, everyone fucking died at the end. So,
I mean, true, but they died completing their mission, and thus the Imperium was saved to endure another few measly hours.
Yes, it's just that the Golden Throne will no longer be repaired.
Better that than sabotage by homunculi.
I feel like it's weird because the Horus Heresy does a really good job of showing the Imperium getting its arse handed to it over and over again. It's just that whole period of like Warhammer 40k sort of history is just one big, and then it got worse for the Imperium specifically, but also the galaxy as a whole. And I actually really like that, and I feel like I'm not like, I haven't massively kept up with new 40k releases because it feels like there's kind of been a trend for a while of the Imperium loses, but not really, and what they did worked anyway, so the people dying doesn't really matter because the heroes did the thing. And
then they went home for tea.
Yeah, it's kind of, I found myself preferring going back to like the earlier Horus Heresy novels because no one comes out of it good. No. And I feel like a core tenet of the 40k universe is everyone sucks here. Everyone's terrible. Like, no, a win for any faction is kind of a lose for literally everybody because look at the state of it all.
Yeah, Damocles Gulf, great example. The Tau lose, the Imperium win, but the Imperium also just set half the bloody Eastern Fringe on fire.
Yeah, it's like no one's benefited there. It's just bad. It's bad all around. I think the problem is that really, for the vast majority of readers, everyone sucks is not actually a selling point. It's just a kind of, I don't like the fact that there's no one to root for here, but
yeah, it's that same problem of there are no good guys in 40k, but here are the Space Marines who look like heroes, or these grizzled veterans of the Imperial Guard, and look at all the evil spiky artwork that goes with everybody else. Like, you and I, and most people who know 40k vaguely well, know the Imperium sucks ass. It is awful. But
everyone sucks. It's 40k.
It does, but getting that point across is difficult if you don't know a lot of the older, well, not older lore, but the established canon and the background of like, what are the Space Marines? What is the Imperium? Like, you can easily read Outgunned and go, okay, the Imperium has a problem with bureaucracy and politics. Okay, I can understand that, but they're still the good guys because they're fighting to protect this world. You can take that as the takeaway from Outgunned. They lose, but they come back later. They try stuff, they innovate, and they try. They're trying. That's a message you can take away. Dawn of Fire. The Imperium are the good guys on the front foot, taking back territory from the evil, dastardly forces of Abaddon the Despoiler. Yes, if you read through most of the subtext, you will realise that most of the Imperium is also a shithole, but that's secondary subtext and sub-stories, not the boom, boom, Space Marines main plot thread. I don't know. Awesome. I agree with what Kiri's saying, that you need someone to root for, but oftentimes that gets conflated between rooting for the individual and rooting for the individual's faction.
Yeah. Something that I found super interesting was I introduced a friend to 40k recently who has been very resistant to it for a while. Mm-hmm. Just because they were like, I don't care about tabletop gaming. I don't want to do it. I don't like it. I've tried it before. It's boring. I'm like, well, you don't have to do the tabletop thing. You can just paint, or you can, listen to audiobooks or read books. And they actually started reading the Horus Heresy from book 1 and immediately went, everyone sucks. What is this? Like, the Imperium are just going around murdering people because they think they should be in charge? What? Why? Who am I supposed to like here? And I'd sat and watched quite a lot of Vikings with this person. And I said, well, who did you root for in Vikings? And he went, well, I really like Ragnar Lothbrok, like the main character. And I said, well, okay. Was he a good person?
No.
Like, was he actually a good person? Was he nice? Was he kind, generous, charitable? And he went, oh no, he was terrible. Just absolutely awful person. Yeah, like,
there's your answer.
Literally going to other countries specifically to kill and rob from them. These are not the actions of a nice man. And I was like, but you were rooting for him, right? And they went, well, yeah, because he was the main character. And I went, that's the Imperium.
Yeah.
That's just, it's the same thing. Instead of one specific person, it's an entire monolithic empire that is collapsing in on itself. And I think it's really easy if... it's going to sound pretentious, but I think if you're used to having a good guy in the media you consume, whether it be books or dramas or like soaps or films or whatever, it's kind of easy to look at the Imperium as it's presented in a lot of the 40k specific books and go, oh, well, they're trying to protect people, so they must be good. And it's like, no,
yes,
not really.
God forbid that human had a deformity. Blam.
Yeah.
God forbid that human had psychic powers. Blam. God forbid that human happened to live on a world that made it really short and muscly. It's not human anymore. Blam. Etc.
It's all bad. It's like, I think it comes down to some. I once heard someone go, well, I mean, the Imperium's better because it's the lesser of two evils. And I went, you understand that both parties are evil in that analogy, right?
Yes.
It's the lesser of two evils. They're still awful. It doesn't change them being awful. It just means that in that specific instance, the Chaos Space Marines who were taking people and sacrificing them, arguably slightly worse. But that doesn't mean that everything the other party are doing is good. It's still terrible.
And it's interesting that when they introduced a faction who could unironically be good guys, by which I mean the Tau, yes, okay, you could say, oh, they might be enslaving people, and I'm aware that that accusation is there, and I'm not saying this is a Tau fangirl, I'm saying this because this is how they were presented. They were a peaceful, but able to fight more than capably empire who wished to assimilate other alien species into the greater good, so that they could get on with their lives. That was a genuine, forward-thinking, positive, hopeful faction. And you know what people said? They don't belong here. Grimdark them a bit. So they did with the Fourth Sphere and Farsight and the sterilization and all of that stuff. They completely Grimdarkified the Tau. And they're still forward-looking, they're still expansionist, absolutely, but they're a lot less merciful, and they're a lot more grimdark, and they're much, much less noble bright than they used to be.
And the ironic thing is there's a whole bunch of people complain that now they're too dark.
Yeah, you want to talk about controversial statements? They should have left the Tau alone. The Tau should have been noble bright through and through, because that is a stark contrast to the rest of the universe. And having a faction that is forward-thinking, that is tolerant, that is only acting to defend itself against the horrific, unspeakable evil of a galaxy dead set on self-destruction due to, like, ingrained xenophobia, is, like, the perfect way to demonstrate that everyone else sucks. Because then you have a faction that you can unironically go, yeah, but they're not too bad. Like, comparatively, they're pretty good.
Yeah, it's not the lesser of two evils, they're just all right.
Yeah, it's like, even in their worst moments, they wouldn't be quite as bad as everyone else, which gives a really good staging point for highlighting how, you know, a single Space Marine holding out till the end to ensure the survival of an entire planet is, to that Space Marine, a noble and heroic end. But then when you look at it in the context of 2 systems away, a planet has just been nuked to oblivion because one person was a little bit psychic, it really offsets that and shows how completely hypocritical and backwards the Imperium is.
Yep.
But you can't have any good in 40k because then that ruins the whole premise, but it doesn't actually ruin it. It gives it context that, to be honest, now it kind of... I'm not going to say it like completely lacks context, but it's a lot easier for people with less than stellar intentions to go, well, clearly you can see that the Imperium are the good guys. I can't even remember where I heard it, but there was... After Games Workshop published their statement about Warhammer is for everyone, I can't remember who the hell was in this clip, but it was like 3 people... And one of them said, oh, well, if you use this about the Imperium being a terrible, horrible place, then that means chaos is right. And I was like, no. What is wrong with you? Why do you have no media literacy? It doesn't mean chaos is right. It means everyone's wrong. You don't need one person in the setting to be right. But that really reinforced to me that in some cases, you actually kind of do. Because there will be people who don't get the fact that one, like... You don't need one person to be good for most people. But sometimes there'll be someone who comes along and looks at the setting and goes, well, I mean, the Imperium are xenophobic, they routinely murder their own citizens, the average life expectancy is like 35 years old, they actively promote the elevation of children to super soldiers who are stunted emotionally and incapable of feeling half the range of human emotions. But it's all justified because it's not justified. And there's a whole, you know, series of books building up to 40k that kind of demonstrates that they could have gone another direction. But it feels like half the people who go, the Imperium are right, didn't read those bits. And it's really bizarre. Yeah,
it's true. And I think there's... to address the point you said about they should have left the Tau alone, I'm actually on the record saying I quite like the idea of the galaxy will get you in the end. Almost like the galaxy itself is a malevolent force corrupted by the warp. It will get you in the end, no matter how noble you are.
Like, write a downfall into the race. So it's like they started out this one thing, but the pressures of expansion from the Imperium, from invasion, from other races, from just chaos as a whole, like, make it so that this perfect society has a downward decline because
and falls apart.
That's how bad the setting is.
Yeah.
They started out perfect and then went straight down the same route as everybody else because it's just inevitable. That, to me, that's way better than just, oh, actually, they were kind of crappy all along. No, show the degradation. Show the downward spiral.
I think they have in ways, like, they've always been politically dodgy, but the xenophobia of the fourth sphere that was then quickly covered up and keeping Anvar alive as a hollow projection because we can't let the galaxy, the citizenry know he's dead. I think that they are showing that slowly. I don't think we'll ever see the Tau truly disintegrate in the same way as humanity and the Eldari have done because it takes millennia. But I think they are doing that, but it's felt a lot more jarring because it went from, oh yes, toodaloo, they're absolutely fine too. The Damocles Gulf got set on fire and now we have a problem. It's like the Cicatrix Maledictum just flicked the evil button. End of question.
Yeah.
But to address your other point about like literacy and all that, and I'm not going to start a massive rant, but to put it short, the issue that GW has had with its literature is all of the horrible evil stuff that makes you recontextualize everything you know is not in the mainline books. Or if it is, it's a subplot. You don't find it in codices, or if you do, it's nowhere near explicit enough. It's not in rule books, and it doesn't show the same level of, oh, actually, yeah, the Imperium or whoever are actually awful because they do this. It's not reinforced. It's just sort of left there.
In some cases, you just need to read between the lines as well.
It does. Sometimes you need to read between the lines, but sometimes you just need to put it on the fucking line in the first place because not everybody's going to take the time to read and deeply interpret the lore of their army.
That's true. I also, as well, I think there's also, because of the way that the hobby is kind of splintered, like there's definitely like a fracturing going on where there are people who only paint and there are people who only read the lore. One of the biggest tells for the Imperium being an absolute hellhole is at the start of the core rulebook, where it has that quote about how like 1,000 souls are sacrificed a day to the Emperor, and to be a citizen in the Imperium is to be one of untold billions. You know, I forget the exact quote.
In the cruelest regime imaginable. Was saying that,
in the cruelest regime. It's like, it's spelt out pretty damn hard in those introductions. It is literally, this is the worst time to be a human ever. It sucks. The Imperium sucks. The universe sucks. The galaxy sucks. Everyone's here to kill you, and no part of this is good. But if you only read the books, you will never see that introduction in the rulebook. I don't think they've put it in any of the novels. I can't think of like, I have a bunch of the Horus Heresy books just outside this room in a bookcase. I don't think that intro is at the start.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to check Outgunned.
I know some of the books do have something, so one second, I'm just going to grab one check, 1 second.
Yeah, I'm just going to go back to the... No, it is. It is in every novel, but it's always before like the title page, the preface, chapter 1. Like that exact quote: "To be a man in such times is to be one among untold billions, to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable, to suffer an eternity of carnage and slaughter, to have cries of anguish and sorrow drowned by the thirsting laughter of dark gods. This is a dark and terrible era where you will find little comfort of hope. Forget power of technology and science, forget the promise of progress and advancement, forget any notion of common humanity or compassion. There is no peace among the stars. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war." Boom. That quote is at the front of every novel, But
so it's at the front of the novels as well? Because I've got, like, I'll be honest, I skip straight to the start of the stories, and in the Horus Heresy books, there's like a recap. I've got Age of Darkness in front of me.
The Horus Heresy books do have a different thing in front of them compared to the regular mainline 40k books.
Yeah.
I've got I just picked up my copy of Dark Imperium, and it does have that quote, to live in these times, to live in the cruelest, most bloody regime imaginable, quote, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it is in the front of Dark Imperium.
But as you say, if you skip to chapter 1, you will miss it.
Yeah, agreed.
And
maybe I should also include in my outrage statement, if you've read that and didn't get the message, what? It's pretty clear. You can't read that and go, it sounds all right. It doesn't sound all right. It doesn't sound all right. It sounds really bad. And it's not exactly being coy about the setting, is it? It's just...
Yeah. But
it's literally on the page right next to, like, the whole legal stuff and the ISBN number and shit like that. So.
Yeah. Okay, I'm now going to say one slightly controversial thing to finish on before we leave this segment alone and probably wrap up the show because it's nearly an hour, nearly 2 hours.
Yeah, I was hoping to get through Void King, but hey, never mind.
Sorry. If the Imperium was an alien faction, they would be a completely evil faction and everyone would know it.
They would be they'd be the aliens out of Independence Day. That's what they would be.
The biggest of bads.
It'd be terrible. I
think,
imagine, if you will, sorry.
I was going to say, I think the only reason why so many people view the Imperium as the quote-unquote good guys, I personally just call them, the protagonists rather than the good guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the reason they are viewed by so many people as the good guys is by virtue of them being the human faction. We are part of the same species, therefore they are the most relatable to us by the fact that we know what other humans are like. We don't know what space elves are like. We don't know what giant cockney mushrooms are like, so...
No, imagine, just for a second, imagine if you swapped the names of the human and Eldari factions. So you had the Craftwell Eldari are the main human faction, and the Imperium is the big Xenos empire that's been stomping on us since we accidentally blew ourselves up. Suddenly, everyone will be like, the Eldari are just trying to get by and survive, no matter how many horrible things they do and fates they manipulate. We'll not talk about the Drakari for a second. But if the Eldari were human, they'd be the good guys. The Tau, same thing. If the Tau were human and the Imperium was this big alien empire out there, they'd be undoubtedly the good guys, no matter how politically shady and militaristically weird they happen to be. Same with, maybe not the Tyranids and the Orcs, but the Necrons. A human society, take Fallout, has been underground for millions of years, or hundreds of years, resurfaces, and there's a big, ginormous pile of empires and a massive bloody warp rift created by those aliens. And you're like, what the hell is all this space magic? We don't even know how to do space magic. Again, the Necrons would look like the good guys, even if they were still the genocidal, fanatical purifiers. That they are.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I'll be honest. Becoming a parent has made me far more sympathetic to the Necron cause. Waking up to a horrific mess and going, "What the fuck is all of this?" Relatable, super relatable. I'm on Team Necron. I see where they're coming from.
Genociding the population.
You've been asleep. You've been having a lovely rest, and you wake up, and the house is an absolute nightmare because a bunch of young upstarts have come in and wrecked everything. I'm with them. Infuriating. Yeah. I can see why they've lost it. It's totally justifiable.
Yeah.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll come to an end of this episode of Adeptus Podcastus. And so, hopefully next episode I'll get to talk about Void King. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm not sorry. Those conversations were hilarious and good fun, and I haven't laughed that hard on a podcast in far too long.
Indeed. So thank you very much to Kirioth for joining us this episode. It's been long and bloody overdue, as I've said multiple times.
Let's try and do this again, a little bit sooner than
sometime next year, please.
Let's make it next year.
Let's make the booking now, so it's all in our diaries long in advance.
I mean, I'm 100% in for that. That's probably the best way to do it at this stage.
So until next time, this has been Remleiz from 40k Theories.
This has been Neve from Tactica Imperialis.
And me, Kirioth.
And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.